This simple opening will change your chess forever. It starts with the move d6. I played for 10 years and it completely shifted my perspective about chess. I stopped memorizing lines, I started to understand it, and it changed my life and life of hundreds of my students. It's called the Philidor defense. Once they play d4, you play knight to f6. You attack this pawn on e4, and they immediately have a problem to solve. If they play e5, they basically just lose. All you need to do is exchange the queens and play knight g4, winning at least a pawn. And a lot of players under 2000 actually fall for it. The normal move would be knight to c3. Bishop d3 is also possible. In every case, we play e5, and this magic opening begins with this move. e5, we again attack, again create a problem for the opponent, attack the pawn on d4. Now, you don't need to memorize lines here. It's not that if you miss a move, you're gonna immediately lose. No, here you just understand where your pieces belong and what the key ideas of the opening are. And you're going to be so successful with it. I have an entire playlist on my channel on this specific opening so that you can be prepared against everything your opponent might throw at you, and a whole course, 10-day opening mastery, where you can build a full holistic opening repertoire both for white and black. The link is in the description right now. There is an absolutely amazing deal. Check it out. Alright, so c3, they protect the pawn, that is very reasonable, and in this case, well, this diagonal is rather going to be opened, is an exception where I do recommend you play the move g6 and place your bishop on g7. In all other scenarios, we play bishop to e7, but it's specifically great against this knight on c3. That's the reason why it's so great. We play c6 and then this knight is stuck. This line though, and it's very good that our opponent played it, so you know how to handle it. We place the bishop on g7 and then we try to take advantage along this long diagonal. They can play different moves, knight f3, knight e2, we don't really care. Just play the same simple plan. We go bishop g7, then we are gonna castle, and then we are gonna see what we do with the c-pawn. Generally, we always play c6 in this opening, but we have a specific idea behind that move. We want this knight not to go to d5 or b5, and then it's simply stupid there. But in this case, there is no knight on c3. So that changes this key thing, and we don't even need to play c6. We might be more active and play c5 maybe. Let's see. First, we don't care. I mean, bishop g5 does not create any threats. Maybe we could have played h6 immediately, but not that important. He's wasting time, he's not making castles, not creating any threats. This pin is absolutely harmless. There is no knights to like jump to d5 and create a real problem. And if there would be, then of course we would play c6, and that wouldn't be possible anyway. Okay, whenever they take on the e5, that basically solves all of our opening problems. We just take it back, and now they changed this very active pawn for this less active one. So we have open file on d5, we have a target to attack. This c3 is actually creating a problem so that they cannot bring the knight there. So yeah, nothing great for the opponent from the very beginning. It's only move number 7. We play against a very strong player, over 2000 elo, but my point here is this opening will allow you to crush anyone under 2000 elo, and I'm gonna show you exactly how you do that step by step. It's not the opening where you need to make all of the perfect moves, right? It's a very solid choice. Even if you make mistakes, but you still understand the plan, you're going to be good to go. That is why I love it so much, and that is why it brought such incredible results to so many of my students. They were stuck, they needed to memorize so many lines, they couldn't, and as a result they lost so many games. But now they use these, and life became so much easier for them. This level of complexity is so much lower in this magic opening. Alright, knight to d2. Yeah, that's completely fine. Let me play h6, because it feels like a free move for me, because if they are gonna take, we are happy, we are gonna have 2 bishops advantage. But if they're gonna go backwards, then we have just got a luft for the king, absolutely for free. We can even continue with g5 and some lines. Okay, they take it. You always want to bring new pieces into the game. The golden principle is one piece, one move. So bishop f6 would be the second move with the same piece that you have already developed, whereas queen to f6 brings a new piece into the game. They played knight f3 and it seems like they played this knight f3, but in fact this knight came here, which means they have lost time. And time is the most important resource, both in our life and in chess, and we need to take advantage of that. The way we do that is just by developing our pieces. I have a lot of good options here. I like rook to d8, I like knight to d7, and I want to demonstrate it as this is the key move in this opening. You don't go to c6. You're going to be stuck because of the c3 pawn, right? The pieces should perform a very useful job, every single one of them. You don't want any unemployment going on in your camp. And afterwards, this knight can come to c5, where it's gonna attack this guy. This guy, c5 is the best square possible for this knight in this opening. Please remember it. And yeah, at some point we are gonna place the rook on d8, maybe even this rook on d8, and it's going to be very powerful. This is the open files. Rooks love the open files. You hear some noise. There is an incredibly heavy rain right now outside, so I don't envy people who are out there, but let's continue this game while we are here in safety. Bishop c4. That means they wasted yet another tempo, right? They break this golden principle, one piece, one move. Please never break it in your own games without a very good reason. Sometimes you need to pick up a piece or save your piece. Then yes, make a second move, but otherwise never do that. For example, here, I'm making the second move myself with the same piece, but first it's attacking, it's creating a real threat for the opponent. The center pawn is like the most important one. If I can win it, that would be great for me. Secondly, this knight was blocking my entire development. I want to bring my bishop out, I want to bring the rook out, and for that perspective, this knight should move, and c5 is the best square for it to go anyway. Queen c2 is defending the pawn, but the problem is now I play bishop g4, developing yet a new piece very actively, and at the same time create a threat for the opponent. It's good if you develop your piece. It's great if you develop your piece actively to a square where it's actually useful. And it's the best if you can do all of that while creating a real threat for the opponent. Please try to achieve that in your own games. Because the more threats you create for the opponent, the more uncomfortable you make his life. That increases the chance that he's going to make mistakes. And you're going to win the game. That is how it works. You're playing against a real human being who doesn't like to handle pressure, to feel pressure. So that's our main goal here. Now our rooks are already connected, even though we play as black. Because our opponent was breaking this golden development principle, we are now ahead in terms of the development. This is the entire point. The one who is faster with the development is going to have a huge advantage. You're basically preparing for the battle, and your opponent is still not ready, so of course you're going to destroy him. All right, he makes long castles, just sacrificing this pawn, which I think I would be happy to take. Why not? You, of course, should take a look at it. Like, don't think that your opponent is stupid, he just blundered. Try to understand what is his idea. Maybe he sacrificed to attack you afterwards and your queen would be stuck, or he's gonna win it. But also, don't be intimidated. Don't be afraid of your opponent. If you truly believe in your plan, please feel free to go with it if you don't see how concretely he can beat you. So this is this play as active as possible approach that I want you to follow. First, it makes so many problems for the opponent. It increases your chances to win. Secondly, you're going to learn so much more if you play chess this way. But it doesn't mean just like take one of your pieces and go ahead with it. That's absolutely not what I recommend. Quite the opposite. First, you want to prepare for the battle, but once you do, please go ahead and destroy the guy. Of course, you can say, well, we haven't developed those rooks yet, but it's okay, because we have won a pawn. We had a very good reason to make a second move with the same piece, and we also created a bunch of threats for the opponent. So again, instead of doing something he wanted to do, he needed to deal with my threats. This is the best type of moves you can ever make in chess. All right, what do we do now? We have rook to d8 move, which I like a lot. It's developing a new piece. You can go to d5, but we can take. If bishop takes c6, if pawn takes e4, so all great. Rook a to d8, and more pieces are participating in the attack. Yes, he can play b4 and try to get rid of our knight, but that is connected to some risks, like this c3 pawn. You don't want to castle and then open up your king on that side of the board. That is generally not a great strategy. So we are not afraid of that. And otherwise, I don't even see what kind of ideas my opponent has, like what he can, how can he attack, create something. This knight on g3, for example, is doing absolutely nothing. Right, this pawn on g6 stops all the way for it to go forward. The knight itself is blocking the rook if it goes there. Okay, he plays h4, trying to at least creating some weaknesses. Exactly about this g6 pawn, because if he can go here, that would really attack the pawn. Right, that's a problem. But if I play g5, trying to solve that problem, he's gonna play knight f5, and that knight would be great. Maybe not immediately, but after defending this guy. But knight f5 is nothing we want to see. So whenever your opponent makes a move, forget about all of your plans and think, what is the idea behind that move? Second, ask yourself, is it really dangerous for me? A lot of players miss this step, but it's really crucial if you want to improve at chess. Is it dangerous for me? If it is, do something about it in the most active way possible. If it's not, then go ahead with your plan. I think that we can just play h5 here, because then the knight cannot go forward, and our bishop becomes very active. It gets this h6 square with a check, then it can go to f4, creating a lot of problems. We can take here, and then this pawn is going to be hanging, because basically this bishop is not active, not that active anyway. Also, we secure this pawn on h4, which means that it can be a target. For example, this rook is going to be developed, or we're going to exchange it. We can play bishop f6 and just attack this pawn. The best case scenario, if you have dark squares bishop, is to put your pawns on the light squares, because this way you control light squares with your pawns and you control dark squares with your bishop. Everything is under control. But if you do the other way around, then your bishop will be extremely passive, it wouldn't have any moves to go, and you're gonna have huge holes on the light squares. Nobody is gonna control it. Okay, rook g1, he's preparing some attack, but I can always take, right? And then he would need to take it back, so I don't see the point. I can either play bishop h6 or bishop f6. If you don't know what to do in the position, first develop your pieces. If you don't know what to develop, ask yourself, what is my worst placed piece? Like the piece that is doing nothing, and how can I improve it? This bishop on g7 is currently doing nothing. Yeah, it's kind of defending my king, but it's not enough for such a powerful piece. So it's blocked by the pawn. I can play bishop h6 check, king to b1, and then something like here. Or I can play here immediately. There are no threats like this knight h5, I protect it, and there is no way for him to attack the queen. If the knight goes away... wait, there is knight f5 idea, right? But it doesn't create any threats either, and I can just take over here. Or I can even take the rook, and then if he takes, then the knight is free to take. If he takes with the queen, then I exchange everything and win the e4 pawn in the end. I noticed another threat. So every single time your opponent makes a move, try to understand this threat. This rook can actually take the pawn on g6 once the knight is gone. But the problem is, again, how do you get rid of the knight? You only need to go backwards, but then I can take here, and defend all of the guys. So it's not going to be a problem. I'm going to be brave and play bishop f6. I have thought about my opponent's opportunities, and I have concluded it's not dangerous for me, so I want to continue with my plan, which was to improve my guy here on g7, the worst placed piece. I attacked the pawn here. I might even play king g7 if I need to deal with this threat, but for now it seems to be good to go. And I'm kind of ready for rook takes d1 in every single point. Of course, if you were thinking like, I want to play c6, b5, a5, that was completely possible, 100%, go for it, very legitimate strategy. Once you start playing this opening, you will immediately feel how much easier your life is. It's not a mainstream opening, so your opponent is not going to have enough experience. He wouldn't have any idea how to deal with it. Whereas the more games you're going to play, every single game as black, you're going to have this opening because you can play it literally against everything. You're going to gather this experience. You're going to watch more videos from this playlist. If you want, you can join the 10-day opening master where I dive 1000 times deeper into all of it, and so you understand absolutely everything you need for like at least achieving 2000 elo in real life and beyond that. Because I'm international master, I played this for 10 years and became such a strong player thanks to this opening. Okay, he actually plays knight to f5. I still don't see a single threat. Rook takes g6. Okay, I understand that. But what about rook d1? Don't be afraid. Like, yes, you understand the threat. It's very important. But then you ask yourself, is it dangerous? Yes, it is. I don't want to lose this pawn. Then my king is going to be naked. My bishop is hanging. That's absolutely not something you want to happen. So you ask yourself, what is the most active way for me to deal with the problem? And you always start with the most active opportunities: checks, captures, and threats. In this case, I have this very active move, which is a check and a capture at the same time. That is, rook takes d1. And he has a very unpleasant choice. He can take with the rook, but then he doesn't have the spin anymore, which means I can just win the knight. Or he takes with the queen, where I can just take it and go into the endgame with an extra pawn, which is like a dream. And maybe I'm going to even win the second pawn. Yeah, so we have this choice right now. Queen takes d1. He has to take with the king. I can even play... Probably rook d8 is not needed because this pawn might be... Although it's good. Rook d8 check and then king f8. And then here everything is very solid, whereas those pawns would be hanging. Or I can play queen takes e4, playing with the queens on the board, maybe even starting with queen f4. That feels interesting, because if the king goes somewhere here, then I'm going to take with the check, basically winning the bishop here. So he probably has to play either knight e3 backwards, which is always good for you, or queen d2. But then the advantage is I can take it and take here with the check. I don't know, it becomes a little bit complicated, like rook g6 is still coming, and that actually wins the bishop. I don't think we need all of that. I think we should just take, and now we just have a choice. Rook d8, but then I don't like this pawn, the fact that this pawn is a little bit vulnerable. So I want to play this instead, because now this pawn is still protected, and this knight cannot go to h6, and this knight is really hanging. This pawn is protected, everything is cool, but this guy is hanging, and this, if the knight goes anywhere, and it has to go anywhere because it's hanging, I can just pick up the pawn, absolutely for free. And yes, we have opposite colors bishops, so the opponent might have a little bit of a chance thanks to it, but it shouldn't help. I mean, 2 pawns is a lot, and also I'm going to have passers. In the endgame, it's all about passers. The pawns that can promote itself without any problem from the opponent. For example, this g-pawn is not a passer. It cannot go through this pawn, it will take it. But once I take this h-pawn will become a passer. And once you have it, you should be looking for ways to promote it and actually get a queen and checkmate your opponent. Let's see how I'm gonna succeed with that. But you see, just 20 moves, we are playing as black, and thanks to this magic opening, we just completely crushed him. Now it's just a matter of our endgame technique, how fast and easy we are going to convert it into the full point. And of course, chess is a complicated game. You can still lose the game from here as well. But this opening provides you with this solid foundation, a very good chance to overtake the initiative, because your opponent doesn't have any experience, he doesn't know how to play, he's going to make mistakes. And third, it saves you a lot of time. You understand the key ideas, and I help you a lot with that. So you can execute it quickly, and you have a lot of time on your clock for the late middle game and the end game where you actually convert your advantage. He goes backwards. Now we can just take it here, and I'm threatening to take the knight and then grab the third extra pawn. That is fantastic. I still have rook d8 at my disposal, but sometimes you want to keep those checks for later once you actually need it. It's more difficult for the opponent to understand at which point you're going to play it. Okay, do we take? I think it should be the easiest way for us to take the knight. because then we don't have these opposite colors bishops. This is the best way to make a draw, if you're some material down even, but you have opposite colors bishops. That helps you a lot. You can like block the pawns easily, and it's very difficult if you place all of your pawns on the light squares, for example. Your opponent has a dark squares bishop, he won't be able to attack you. But now we are going to have a knight, which is a very tricky piece, and we are going to go back and forth and create problems for the opponent. What do we start with? I think I want to play something like c6, although he wants to play b4 probably. I want to have my knight somewhere here, but if I go knight e6, probably he's gonna take it. And yeah, those pawns are doubled, weak. Maybe it's not something we want to achieve. But how do we remaneuver our knight? We can just place all of our pawns on the dark squares. This way he can never attack us. And then we have a lot of time to remaneuver our knight. There is only one open file, so it's important to control it with our rook, not to allow his rook to go somewhere here, which we are gonna do. And otherwise, I don't see any way he can create counterplay for me. Well, I could have directly go ahead and play f5, but that creates some weaknesses. I'm not sure I need that. So let me show you exactly how you convert such a position into a full point. You don't need to be in a hurry. You're 2 pawns up here. So just stabilize the position. Make sure that there is no way he can create problems for you. Your king is on the dark square, for example, so there are no even potential checks for you. And step by step, improve your position. There is no reason to be in a hurry. Maybe I'm going to play c6 and b5 at some point. Even though the pawns are going to be on the light squares, I don't see a way for the bishop to attack it, as long as I control this file. But yeah, I'm going to restrict his mobility a lot. King might go here, so that once the rook goes away, I can just go forward. Like, if you imagine the king on f4, it would be a fantastic piece. Nobody can attack it. Yet, it's very powerful. And then basically all I would need to do is place my rook behind the pass pawn and push it as far as possible. At some point he would need to block it with some of his pieces, but that means he's going to be passive. Yeah, before, as expected. I think we can even play knight a4. It feels a little bit dangerous, but we attack the pawn. Maybe though we cannot take. Okay, let's not make any fancy moves. Let's play very simple. Knight to d7. We need a better square for it. Not sure yet how to. Maybe. Yeah. Maybe c6, b5, and knight b6. Let's start with the move c6. It's useful anyway. Yeah, he is about to get control of this very important file, which I don't really like. But I also noticed that if I play rook d8, then he has bishop f7 attacking this and this behind the g pawn. So not a big fan of what's happening right now. How do I actually stabilize the position? Maybe I do attack that pawn. I mean, knight a4 was actually better, more active. Let's do that. Let's start with the move knight b6. We're gonna see where the bishop is going. Maybe it's gonna go backwards, which is probably the right thing to do. But at least we control this d7 square, so the rook cannot go here. And I think it's time for us to create some problems, or at least remaneuver our king to a better square, like f4, like I wanted to. He does have some ideas. He wants to play something like this, then a4, a5 to kick my knight away. and then gets to d7. That would be pretty dangerous. But what I can do, I can place my rook somewhere on the 7th rank, not here because the bishop controls it, but maybe here, so that I control this, no weaknesses, and at the same time I'm gonna push my pawn forward. And this king, like I promised to, should go somewhere like f4. But I should be careful, like if I play king g5, he's gonna go back to rook g1 check, and I cannot really go forward to f4 because this pawn is going to be hanging. So it's not simple. He still creates some difficulties for us. Which he should. I mean, he's a strong chess player. But our advantage is definitely on this side of the board. Here we have 3 against 3, no advantage. I don't like c4 move. I don't like it at all. Now we can... Yeah. Yes, we can. We can play rook to d8, and after c5 we can play knight c8. So by playing c4, he's blocking his bishop for one tempo. And that's exactly the tempo I need to... remaneuver my pieces. Now I control this file. I can even play rook to d4, and if he plays bishop to f7, I have knight e7. The knight will be protecting everything here. But of course, your opponent is not going to be perfect either. He's going to make some mistakes, and it's your job to take advantage of it. Knight e7. I like to keep the pawn on g6 for now, because if I play g5, he's going to control everything here. Also fine, but I know it feels very safe. Also, my knight is like from c8, it can only go to e7 either way. So now I'm ready to improve my rook. Maybe even play f5 at some point, once I'm ready for it. Yes. Do we play a5? Not sure, because still this rook might come this way. Maybe it's time for rook d4 and f5. Like king e3, I go f5, I'm threatening f4. If he takes, I want to play knight x5 check, then g5, and finally make progress. So I think we achieved exactly what we wanted. First step is to stabilize the position, make sure that all of our pieces are in the right squares. So, for example, the knight was on c5, it was active for the time being, but in the endgame, yeah, it was easily attacked there, and it wasn't helping me with the defense, with stabilizing the situation. Now on e7, you might argue it's a little bit more passive, but on the other hand, it's not allowing both of my opponent's active pieces to do anything, and I'm ready to make progress by playing f5. The alternative is to play g5, knight g6, and knight f4. And on f4, the knight will actually be a monster. Okay, that makes it actually technical, which I like, and would be very instructive for you to see how to beat your opponent in such a position. I should be a little bit careful not to allow this guy to come to c8 and win my pawns, create passers for himself. I should be the only one creating passers in this game. I think the first step, my knight is very good defending everything, is to bring my king to f4. Even though the rooks are not on the board anymore, this is an absolutely fantastic square, maybe even more fantastic than with the rooks, because he has 0 ways to attack it. And here, probably play f5. That would shut down this bishop and enable me to create more passers. Because if you play g5, you know, this bishop is like controlling everything, you don't have any breakthroughs. But now with f5, you attack this guy, you threaten to go forward over here. Like, the job of your passer is not necessarily to promote. Like, if you can promote, it would be great, but maybe it's enough to like distract your opponent. For example, I would be happy to exchange this pawn for this one, so I have 2 connected passers, as well as a very active king, and then I will just promote. But there is like nothing my opponent can do against that plan. Let's play h3. This f5 is very cool, because it's blocking the guy. b5. I think I should just ignore him. Like, as long as you have this 3 against 3, there is no way for him to create a passer. But if I take, then he has a potential passer. Then he's gonna play bishop d7, c6, and actually win a piece. Just ignore it. He takes, we are gonna take it back. And I also don't want to touch my knight for now, because he's gonna get here and again create a passer. So just play h2 and go ahead with our plan. Queen takes, and now I have 2 connected passers. That's even better than have just 1 passer, of course, because they can go ahead together and it's very difficult to stop it. The question is, do I play that? Probably I do. That feels very strong. To make sure that this king cannot go there. He can give me a check, yes, but just king is free. And then step by step, I'm gonna push those pawns forward, whereas the bishop on c4 would be less active. And also I'm gonna even create a threat of winning yet another pawn. My opponent has less than a minute, but it's very difficult to like do anything. He has done his best. He tried to push his pawns, but there is just, it's all about the buzzers in the endgame. So you should try to create buzzers yourself, and you should always try to stop your opponent from creating his buzzers, and then you're out of danger. Yes, I think the simplest is to play king d4 and win a third pawn. Why not? That would make our knight free. We would no longer need to be here and protect. We can just play f4, make sure that that pawn is not hanging, and improve our knight. Just in case, we also create a third extra pawn over here, third passer. It's never a problem. I don't even see how he's gonna defend this guy as well. He finally resigns. This is exactly how you use this powerful opening to destroy every opponent under 2000 till. In this playlist, you can learn so much more about it, how to handle different variations. And 10-day opening master is now on sale. Full months of live coaching with me included, completely for free. The link is in the description.